You still
How you doing?
Is my mic muted?
I can hear you now. Can you hear
All
me?
right, I can hear you. Hi, Alex. It was still playing the music from the countdowns that was just completely frying my ADHD brain that went to great lengths to try to make sure that this was as polished and professional as possible for the third try, which I think is impossible.
I
Okay.
think it's the nicest start you've had, frankly. This is the
What?
nicest one. This is the nicest start. This is the most pleasant start we've had.
All right. I see what the problem is. I had the live stream open, and so I was hearing what I was saying coming at me. So just trying to dial in and figure this all out. Hi, everybody. Thank you, and welcome to Talent Grind Live. My name is Michael Doran. I'm the CEO of TeamSource, joined as always by the I don't even know what I'm going to come up with an adjective for
Go
you
for it.
for the endlessly scintillating and fascinating Alex Mann, who runs go-to-market sales over at Ellie.ai. And this is
Hello.
third Talent Grind Live. Alex, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. The weather is good in New York City. So this is, this made the seasonal disaffectiveness disorder is now over, and we can start living. We can come out of our caves. So I'm very positive, very happy, and excited to be here for this, our latest episode.
So does it mean it's like 40 degrees then?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. It is actually, I changed my computer to Celsius and it's 13 right now. I have no
Yeah.
idea what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's about 40-ish, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny. I grew up in the Midwest. And so you get pretty tough to the cold. In my first year out in California, when I was working at Google, I went into work the entire winter in sandals, shorts, and a t-shirt. And I was surrounded by people with North Face parkas and scarves and hats and mittens. And I would be like, "That's adorable. You're cold, aren't you?" And now I've obviously been out here 14 years, and I'm like, "Geez, 60 degrees, getting a little chilly out there." Hey, your blood definitely thins.
Man, that's literally how I am now since I moved here from the Bay Area. I miss a solid 60 degrees all year round. That's what I
Yeah.
miss about living in San Francisco. But yeah, so that's me. Very, very positive. Happy to be here. How about yourself? Everything good in your end?
Uh, you know what? Everything's pretty energized. I've decided finally, after many, many years of work, to pull all these different components that I've been developing separately in the background into one unified vision. And I'm really excited to be able to share that with you and share that with our audience today as kind of an extension of really how I've been thinking recently. But I think to get started here, I want to get on the record on a couple things right off the bat. So first of all, I thought maybe I'll tell just a brief bio about myself, and then you can give a brief bio yourself, and then we can jump into what today's topic is. And so, if you're just joining us, if you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Michael Doran. I was a recruiter for over 25 years. I'm originally from Illinois. I moved out to the Bay Area to work at Google about 13 years ago. Since then, I've been a global talent acquisition manager for startups. I started my own consulting firm. I've helped at least 24 VC-backed startups go from 0 to 1, helping them build recruiting departments. I run TeamSource Services. We offer really affordable, really flexible services at the top of the funnel. And then I'm also kicking off the Talent Grind community, which is really a place where I think that I want to give back to this community and to this profession that's kind of given me so much. And my buddy here, Alex, works for an HR tech company. He comes at the space from a different perspective than I do, someone who's relatively newer to recruiting to HR technology, but someone who's clearly got a passion for it. But he's also a salesperson. He's not kind of an in your trenches recruiter. And so I think he's got beginner's eyesight and a little bit of different perspective. And just to be very, very clear, like in no way, shape, or form is this podcast officially affiliated with Ellie. They are not paying me to be part of this live cast. There's no quid pro quo here. Generally, we're two different companies that are building in the space products for recruiters, and we believe very heavily in building up the recruiting community. Alex?
I would actually 1,000% agree with that, by the way. I think exactly that. Like, I think the content that we're creating here is just trying to shed some light, share some expertise, share some opinions, points of view, hopefully for the benefit of who's listening, who's in the community. Like you said, I mean, I'm not a recruiter, but I've been selling, marketing, recruitment SaaS for almost 4 years now. My background is actually in tech myself, and I've been in sort of go to market, growth marketing for the guts of a decade now. And I've been in a bunch of different companies, from Lend Up Mission Lane, which is consumer credit, to Lambda School, which for those listening that may have
You're part of
heard,
Lambda School?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. I mean, I could talk for days on that.
Oh, jeez.
To
I got
lending,
blacklisted by their company leadership.
yeah,
And I
they're
watched them one too many times on ideas that they were sharing.
Yeah, they are a unique business,
Yeah.
or was a unique business. I think formerly known as Lambda School, now Bloom Tech, and then was at CapChase running growth there, which is a subscription-based lender for SaaS companies. To Landed, which is how I ended up in HR Tech, which is generative AI, SMS for sourcing, vetting, and scheduling of hourly workers for hospitality businesses. And that's kind of how I found myself into sort of a content marketing sort of role, doing podcasts and online sort of LinkedIn lives and stuff. Was in that I just thought they were very fascinating people in talent acquisition and hospitality, and ended up doing the guts of 200 episodes, which led me to like now where I am today, which is heading up the go to market, so the sales and the marketing at Ellie. And I know that there's incredible value out there in the content that you can create, in the content that we can create. And I think it's just a matter of like finding the right people to listen to it. And I think LinkedIn and LinkedIn lives and using Restream like this, and being able to turn it into podcasts, like where people want to consume it. There is an active audience out there. And I think like I'm humbled also just to be able to be in a conversation with you, Michael, like talking about this, because again, like I'm not a recruiter,
Mm.
but I spent the last 4 years. I'd say I've had 1,000 calls with recruiters, problems, challenges, how not to be skeptical of software companies and software products, and how not to nickel and dime. Nickel and diming is my favorite phrase at the moment, but nickel and diming recruiters. And I think there's a lot of software out there that does that to not only recruiters, but HR businesses and HR teams across the land. And yeah, if I can add any color or be entertaining along the way, then I'm happy to be that person.
Yeah, and so we both, I've built technology. You're part of an early stage startup that's built technology in the recruiting space, and I think I just want to
Yep.
be really clear for the community and the audience, like right off the bat, like if I bring HR technology in, it's because I fundamentally agree with what they're doing and how they're treating recruiters, and that I think that they could be a positive addition to the space. I will probably rarely ever bring any B2B HR technology companies into this community. I
Yeah.
think that they're just aligned differently, and that really kind of goes into, I think, the podcast episode topic of the day, which I kind of want to address the current state of recruiting. I was putting together a Substack post that I'm going to be releasing yesterday, and in the middle of it, I basically broke down in tears. I felt so passionate and so moved by it, and I just kind of want
Yeah.
to highlight a little bit because I've been building for the last 5 years. I've been building a services business. I've been building a platform. This is me stretching myself. I am not a natural self promoter. It's always been to my detriment. It's something I need to get better at doing. And that's why I'm immersing myself, and why I'm so grateful to you, Alex, because you're really the one who kind of gave me the energy, showed me the structure. And I'm also on some new ADHD medication. And so all of a sudden, things that
Every
seemed
little helps.
insurmountable before are all of a sudden
Yeah.
just. And I have a reputation of being an over preparer. And then when I do finally execute, it's like, oh, okay. So I've been really building a lot of these elements for a long time and paying attention. I just started going to HR conferences really for the first time last year. And so I took a year just to get a general state of the community. And generally, I think it's poor, right? Recruiters have faced numerous challenges over the last year. My services business was making almost $100,000 a month coming into 2022, and that went to zero. Because I had a couple very good clients, I was able
Yeah.
to build that back up to maybe 15 to 20K a month. ever since then, which has allowed us to keep developing our platform, which has kept the lights on, people's rent paid, but we're not by any means living the high life, you
Yeah.
know? And there's been and if it's affecting me negatively, I know it's affecting a lot of other people negatively. And the thing about recruiting is if you're new to the industry, which by the way is the greatest industry and is the greatest career of all. But we're an economic barometer, right?
Yeah.
When things get bad, we're the first people to know about it. I used to think it was recruiters. It's actually recruiting services businesses because they fire us first, then they fire the recruiters,
It
right?
it sounds like to me, it reminds me of what did Gerald Ford say all those years ago? The State of the Union is not good.
Yeah.
Like, are you saying that there's like, we're in a recruiter recession?
Yeah, and not only are we in a recruiter recession, but we're also in a just like a down spiraling recruiter bubble of apathy and just fear, right?
Okay, start with apathy there. Why apathy?
I I'm going through all these different recruiting Facebook groups. I'm looking at Reddit groups. I'm all over LinkedIn. I've got I was about 19,000, but I've been removing people. I'm kind of culling my network who I'm first degree connections with.
Yeah.
But I have a theory about that. Like I just talked to another recruiter who said she couldn't accept me into her network because she's hit 30,000, but she'll follow me and I can follow her. And I was like, well,
So
don't you
weird.
want me in your network? Like, do you have some rando guy who just sent you a connection request in some completely unaffiliated role or industry, like early in your career, who's still first degree with you? Wouldn't it be more beneficial for you to have someone like me with my connection and network reach in your network versus them? She didn't see it that way. And so I think that, we've all grown up with these platforms, this technology. Now we see it as an everyday part of our life, but we all have to understand that we now have a way that we can evolve and grow too, right? And so I'm taking a look at what's around. I'm taking a look at the top recruiting influencers in the space. I'm not holding it against anybody about making a job, but
Yeah.
you can tell that for the last 8 to 10 years, when a lot of us have been doing the work, they were making the videos. And I saw one who was talking to a podcaster from Europe who started, talking to this person specifically about recruiting in Europe and the intricacies. And this person really didn't have a good response. And it was pretty obvious they had never recruited in Europe. Why are they an influencer in the space? Right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think in one sense, like, I mean, is that person like purporting to be like
Oh,
a
yeah.
recruiter in Europe, or that they're like an American
No,
recruiter on a
they're
European
just a
podcast?
recruiting personality. And I've met this person and I think they're a
Yeah.
good person. And I'm not against them, like, you know, taking advantage of an arbitrage opportunity and getting themselves in early. But I took the exact opposite approach in my career. I was quiet and listened for a long time. I really paid attention. I started sharing a lot of information in the written. I'm just now starting to do more video. I wanted to make sure that when I developed a persona, I was at a point where I had a lot to share.
That's actually an interesting kind of question, because I think, there's a couple of things to unpack there. I think, first and foremost, when you see somebody on a podcast, or you see them on a LinkedIn Live, or you see a recruiter putting themselves out there, part of me in my cynical marketing head is that, like, the content doesn't even matter. It's just being seen. It's kind of like being like Donald Trump. It's like omniscient, it's like consuming every fact of your life. It's just like being there. And it's a kind of quasi like keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. It's like, how did that guy get on that podcast? What's he
Yeah.
doing? The guy doesn't know anything about that topic. Why is he there? The cynic in me is like, it's just marketing. But then in the inverse, it's like, I do think there's incredible value for our people to share content and insights, whether or not, like, whether or not they really want to. I think it's like a professional onus. I think, you're able to provide value first and foremost. People will like you, people will see you, opportunities will come your way. Like social I don't like the phrase social selling, but like being in the game, I'd rather be at the party than not at the party. Do you know what I mean? And I'm actually
Sure.
bad at it myself. Like, I really
But
don't
if you're
write.
earlier career, you could be coming to the party from that perspective. I'm building my career.
Yeah,
Come share my journey. Come learn with me. I'm looking for more senior influencers who can mentor and guide me, right? And you
yeah,
can make content about your relationship with that. But there's a lot of
yeah,
people, and it's really weird because there's a guy I worked with at Google, right? His name is Simone Schiazzi. Look him up, Simone. He's incredible. The content that he's sharing is stuff that I read it. I'm like, gosh, I could have used that like 14 years ago.
yeah.
Gosh, I could have used that like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. I'm meeting with them tomorrow because I started investigating into like the large leadership substacks, the large leadership influencers. I found one who appears to be very successful. He's this notable future of work effort. But when you listen to his TED talk, the video is basically about how he had a job and someone asked him to get a coffee, and that was the last time he worked for someone else. And everybody laughs. He doesn't know an iota compared to what Simone
Yeah,
knows.
but
Right. But Simone has been at Google for the last 15 years. He's been in the trenches. He's been building organizations. He's been doing the work. He's been learning. He's been real time. He's been tactical, right? And now he's building his presence. He's building his consulting business. So I think that we're about to see a sea change here, Alex. And I want to shepherd it and push it as much as I can to get it going because I think there's an opportunity now. These platforms, it's so easy stringing this stuff together now. It's
yeah,
so easy.
like
It's so easy to take a transcript, to do, take a video, drop into the script, do an editing, take a transcript, drop it in Claude, give me a Substack article, read it again, find me some quotes, hit the Instagram. Like anybody can do this stuff.
that I would agree with. I very much would be like, there is a no-brainer. Once you dig around, like there is the night and day when it came to creating content, even during COVID. Like if we're talking about 2020, when people started using Zoom properly and for the first time, like companies were doing company meetings, and now you have Zoom. Where we are and how the editing of all that content, there were like no transcripts at that time.
Yeah.
There was no notes, there was no summaries, there was no turn this into LinkedIn posts and Twitter threads and like a TikTok caption. None of that kind of tooling existed, or
Yeah.
if it did, it was probably like ludicrously bad and ludicrously expensive. Now there's so many tools that can help you just literally take your one big piece of content and turn it into anything you want. Like I always refer to, like, when I started the podcast, when I started Fast Casual, like I have no idea what I was doing. Like genuinely, I didn't even have an episode. And I remember not really thinking about what would it take to actually do this. And the first multiple episodes were recorded on a Google Hangout. Like people were like, "Oh, you need to have like Riverside, or you need to have a tool to do this." I'm like, "No, man! Like you could literally just record this on Zoom. Like
Mm.
there's nothing stopping you recording the episode and getting going." Like people
Riverside's
say,
free. You can
yeah.
do Riverside for a podcast.
Oh no, I know, but the point I'm making
Yeah.
is like in the sense that, like, if people didn't know what Riverside was, in the same way that I've got a mic here like this, and this is a really, really good mic, and it's a
Right.
fancy podcasting mic. It took me 100 episodes to actually go get a mic. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, as in I was using AirPods. So there's no real like barrier to entry for people to actually go create. It's just like, are you willing to be cringy to your friends and family, inverted commas, for about a week? And then you'll realize you don't really care. And then you're like, okay, now I can start making content. You know what
And
I
so
mean? Like,
yeah, that's a great point because that brings us back to the state of recruiting. As I'm looking around the state of recruiting, I see a lot of influencers who really don't have a lot of recruiting experience out there
yeah,
trying to guide people and trying to share information. And more importantly, eh, there's this cycle that happens as you become more senior as a recruiter. When you're at a company or a contract or a full-time job for a long time and you get laid off, if you're a contractor, you're used to it. You know how to get another one. If you're full-time, it shocks you. You need to recover. And then you start thinking about all the bad crap you had to deal with in that job, basically with the other people. And you get the idea, you know what? I'm just going to go out on my own. I can do this on my own
Yeah.
and make a lot more money, right? And so people set out, they try to build a business on their own, and they find out like how hard it is, especially if you're like one person. And but maybe they build a brand, maybe they actually make an about page on LinkedIn. Maybe they actually make a logo. Most people don't even do that. Maybe they actually make a website. Most people don't do that. And then the minute the economy comes back, they grab another full-time gig and they
Yeah.
go right back to work, right? And at the same time, we've got people who are claiming that they're influencers, and they just don't have the experience. Even as a lot of these people kind of going through this turn. So I'm saying, like, now instead of starting the business, keep creating your content, right? Create your content when you're working with somebody. Create your content when you're not. Try to figure out what your brand is. Try to figure out what unique angle you bring to
Yeah. And you know what I would say about
to
you?
your
You know what I
profession,
would,
right?
you know what I would say
Share
about
what
you?
you're seeing, right?
Oh, like this is the thing, even using a word like unique, okay? Unique sounds hard. It means I need to be so original that like it's never been said before. It's like unique is your own voice. Like, what is your take? You know what I mean? You're given a point of view on something. Like nobody's reinventing the interview. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to like create content. Like you don't need to think about it in a way that this has to be the sole version of the words that are written ever committed to a computer. It's like, what's your point of view in it? And I always tell people, it's a great way of just getting your ideas down if you're thinking about creating content is if you have ChatGPT on your phone, it has the voice note on it, and just record yourself writing a voice note into ChatGPT and go, turn this into a LinkedIn post. So you're walking the dog at night and you're just trying to give your point of view on the state of recruitment or the state of something. Like, there's your content. Like, while you're walking the dog, like you got the dog in the leash and you got the phone to your mouth. Like, there are ample ways to capture your point of view. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like the word unique doesn't need to sound like Everest. You know what I mean? Like, I always have, I'm very big on the word unique because I'm like, there, it's really what we're trying to do is just get you to commit pen to paper. It's kind of like losing weight. You know what I mean? You're not going to see it on the scale today, but you'll see it in 6 weeks and then 16 weeks and then 60 weeks. What the impact of the incremental benefits of you doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like, there will be benefits that will compound over time from you creating this kind of content. Like I can speak from my own, and I can speak from a relative place of authority because, like, again, I guess I had 200 episodes of like executives across the board on my pod. The first outreach I did and the first episodes I did were appalling, like terrible. Like, as in, I cringe at what I said because I had this absolutely naff opening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I just thought it was like, I thought that's what you had to do. And I was like, no, like eventually I got better. You get more confident at it. You
Yeah.
get more comfortable
You learn
with
the tools.
understanding the tooling and the process. And once you get that down, like, I guess last of my sort of like kind of metaphors, there's so many, but I always refer to creating content, especially like a video like this, like a Thanksgiving turkey. Because the reason why I say that is like not because the episode would be a turkey, more like it sounds like an 8-hour preparation to get it in the oven and get it ready for dinner, when it's actually not. And what people really care about is almost as much about like the sides and the leftovers as they do about the turkey itself. And when we think about sides and leftovers, like this one video that you can create for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, interviewing friends and family, eventually colleagues, eventually whatever, like that can be turned into Spotify, Apple, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Reels, LinkedIn, blog posts, quotes, like GIFs, like all of that exists inside this one piece of content. Like there's just such a tremendous unlock there for you, and the tools are there now to
It's
take
so easy.
advantage of it. Yeah, like the
And
tools
so
are
I guess
there.
what annoys me, going back to the state of the community, is taking a look at some of the influencers in the recruiting space. Apparently, they must not be making as much money from the videos anymore because, like, now they're starting recruiting agencies for the first time,
Well, that's
and
just leverage.
they're also charging people to teach them how to do social media.
That's the how would I even describe it? That is the playbook. Like unpacking that a bit more is like, if we identify who are the biggest influencers in this space, it is likely career coaches, it is likely resume makers, it's likely interview and mock preparation. Those kinds of people that create
Sales
content
people
like
from recruiting.
Yeah, they're kind of creating that kind of content though. So it's less like recruiter on recruiter, more like candidate on recruiter, recruiter on candidate kind of content.
Or state
Because
of
like,
recruiting, just
yeah, like even
aggregating a lot
though,
of information and throwing it out as a newsletter.
yeah, well, that I mean, to be fair, like I would recommend that almost in the sense that like that's just like how do you kind of like but again, if you're just putting it out and you're not putting your point of view in it, I do think that's kind of trash.
Well,
But
it's
like,
just kinda generic, right? I guess there's a room for it, but we're moving into a world where I can just go to Claude, "Hey, give me an over," or maybe ChatGPT, like, "Give me an overview of all the recent changes in talent acquisition, things that are
yeah,
notable, things I need to know."
totally.
Right,
And you
right, so
can
it's like,
create
I
that.
almost feel like we're just at a point where we need to evolve even more because these same influencers now are shilling enterprise recruiting tech, who are then inviting them to conferences.
Yeah.
So then they do more podcasts, and then they get different sponsors,
Yep.
and so they're kind of in this loop of sell, 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 sell to recruiters, get them to ask for these tools at their
I see what you're
job.
getting at.
But
So
they're
it would
not
be okay. Are
delivering
you
value
saying,
back. They're not delivering
yeah,
value back to the recruiting community,
I was
right?
just going
Like
to
with the
say, like,
downturn
you
that
would have
we've
no
seen
problem if you were
over
getting
the last
value.
couple years, have any of them put together a fund to support recruiters who are maybe in really desperate? I mean, these people have made millions and millions and millions of dollars from recruiting. What have they given back?
Like, in one sense, like, it's very cynical. Like, I mean, it's just like if you're an Instagram fitness influencer or you're like an e-commerce, whatever, like they don't owe anything to anybody. And I mean, I guess
No,
that's like their job. But like at the same time, I mean, like, yeah, like I mean,
I
it's
mean,
like
you could say
you
that they
don't.
don't owe anything to
I would
anybody.
say my take on influencers is don't hate the player, hate the game. You know, it's like if they're able to get
Yeah,
paid and they get a sponsor, more power to them.
I
I
think
would
that's a
say
cop out too.
if they're not giving
You can hate the
value,
player for playing that game and not making a better game.
well, there's that as well. Like I think to your point, like it's all well and good to get sponsored by enterprise software and go to conferences. But if you're shilling, like your content needs credibility. Like if you're going to be in that space
Yeah.
and you want to speak to other recruiters, you bet your ass you want to be credible. Like why would anybody listen to you otherwise? Like it would make like that would bamboozle me that like somebody could monetize enough even with like a low credibility or a low kind of clout within the space because the whole point is to monetize your clout and keep not like monetize it and then immediately demonetize it because you're shilling, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
i I find that fascinating, but then it's like there is just like I mean my LinkedIn feed is marketing, go to market, a lot of recruiting now and marketing, and it is very obvious for me when I look at like what the content is created as like shill. You know, this is just like AI generated content. There's no like humanity behind it, or you can tell that like, do you know what's a telltale sign? Everyone who's listening, do you know what's a telltale sign that somebody sent you something from ChatGPT or had AI generated?
Hmm.
Look at the dash, the hyphen that you get. You get this super long dash, and I don't know why ChatGPT or AI always does this, but it has a very the dash that you would regularly press on your computer is small, and the dash that comes from AI is longer.
Oh,
And every
really?
time I see that, I'm like,
That's a
AI
great
generated.
tip.
Yeah, seriously, like as in, so even when I generate content through like generative AI, I go back in and I read it and I go, would a human write this? And that includes commas and dashes, but you would always see it on the dash.
You know, before I
So
kick this all off, we were going down that road as well. My co-founder was setting me up in HeyGen and 11 Labs, and we
oh,
were
that's
gonna
cool.
just generate a lot of AI videos of Michael, and I just realized I just realized, like, I don't think that's the way. Like, I have a lot to say. I might as well just go out and say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have this is what I think James Joyce wrote in Ulysses. This is what they call an epiphany. Yes, like of course, like if you've got something to say, this is why
Yeah,
we're on this stream right now. You
yeah,
know, like it's go out and say it. There's nothing stopping you. Like you have a phone, you have a laptop, you have a microphone. It's there. You know what I mean? Like as
yeah.
in you don't need and this is I'm not skeptical and I'm not critical of AI video avatars, all this kind of stuff. You know, there's a place for everything in the marketplace of capitalism, But what I will say is, like, why can't you do it yourself? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, that's the
yeah.
thing. So I'm glad that you had that epiphany.
Well, it's fun because it's funny because like I've been building all these different elements. I've been developing this broader strategic plan, but I just feel like we're at this right time with the right moment. Like Substack, I just shifted. I'm going to be doing all my podcasts directly into Substack now, and it's going to distribute on the RSS, right? Like I
Okay.
have everything in Substack, and we've gotten to the point where these platforms are much more powerful. It's so much easier to share information from them, and so it kind of goes into like what's Talent Grind all about. I mean, this is an open invitation. If you're a recruiter, if you're related to recruiting, if you've got a strong interest in recruiting, so it's recruiters, recruiting leadership, company founders, even maybe people who are HRBPs, but occasionally they have to recruit, but you specifically need to be within the recruiting world. The Talent Grind community is open to you. We're here to support each other. We're here to learn from each other. We're going to be sharing a lot of upcoming initiatives and content. But I found another company, and we could probably have a whole show about English recruiters versus American recruiters because it's such completely different recruiting worlds over there than it is from here. And I found a recruiter who hit a hard time and went out and started a product, and now they're selling training very expensively.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my own videos of every single one of their videos, and I'm going to give them away for free to the Talent Grind community. And then I'm probably going to do about 100 other videos. I'm going to drop my entire 25 years of recruiting knowledge and experience and little pebbles and tips from the very top of the funnel all the way down to when you close the person and walk them into the door and interject it with experiences across my experience. And I'm going to give it all away for free.
So why don't you just do that rather than, upsetting their apple cart, so to speak?
It's just to make a point that knowledge shouldn't be sold like that.
Well, I would
Knowledge
say,
should be shared, right? Like I've never paid people to redo their resumes. I've helped recruiters at different points in my life, and I've told them everything that I learned about like being a contract recruiter, learning the ins and outs, how to market yourself. I even had a woman say to me one time, I don't understand. This is really valuable knowledge. Why are you telling me this? And my response was always like, it's a big world. Like me helping you doesn't take away from me. I don't think it's zero sum, but I think that if I can help you, like that's better. And if you were to beat me out for an opportunity, good for you. Right? But like I came from a world where knowledge and information wasn't readily shared.
yeah.
And the people who had the inside tips and those were the people who succeeded. And the rest of us just had to figure it out along the way. And I want to give something back to the broader recruiting community. I
See,
want to leave my impact because I started off as a collection agent who worked my way up into customer service before I was lucky enough to get to become a recruiter. And I've worked my ass off ever since then for about 25 years to get where I am today. Right. And I just
see,
think if I had had the tools that I can provide people now, the knowledge I can provide people now, they could probably do in 5 years what it took me 15.
you're dead right. You're dead right. Like, what I mean is, like, I think the new way of doing sort of like marketing online is like giving value to people and exposing people to value.
Yep.
And if they see value in what you're exposing them to, they will come to buy from you when they are ready to buy from you. It's like you never want to be like the way people buy on the internet, whether it's services or whether it's products, is not by forcing it down their throat.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I created this. I think it's really cool. Comment on the below on LinkedIn, and I'll DM you the Google Sheet, or I'll DM you the Notion doc of how I built this. Something like that is like giving value. All of a sudden, you're getting 100, 200 comments on a LinkedIn post. You're getting 1,000 likes. That's invaluable.
Yeah.
I calculated recently, like, a couple thousand impressions that I got like on a LinkedIn post recently. And I was like, I compared that to how much it costs to advertise on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, that's a couple of $100 that I just got for free from LinkedIn. And it's like thinking about things in terms of like value. Like, if you did post like a Notion doc of like how to source, vet, and schedule a candidate. And you just created a doc like that. And you were like, comment on the below, whatever, comment below. Like all of a sudden, you're getting 100 people that are interested. They're probably all recruiters, so they're coming into your community. All of a sudden, there might be people who are like needing of your services. So of that 100 people, let's just say two of them will say, "Oh, I'd love to learn more about your business." 2% from a piece of content, and you're giving away value.
Yeah.
You might have spent 10 hours, 20 hours putting that piece of content together to get 2 meetings. You do it again, you do that, say, 3, 4 times a month or something, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden that's 8, 10 meetings. You might close 3 of them. A closed customer could be worth what? Like 10 grand a year. So it's 3, that's 30 grand. Was it worth your while creating that value for people and building
I
a
guess we'll
community
find
along
out.
the way? Yeah.
My content hasn't got me any, but that's not necessarily why I'm doing it, right? Like I
No.
think that if you I think I've told you about this before. There's a great movie called Supermensch. It's a documentary. It was made by Mike Myers. It's about this guy named Shep Gordon. He's like a Hollywood super agent who started off very humbly. He was Alice Cooper's manager. He worked with Teddy Pendergrass to break up the Chitlin circuit. Like this guy has lived this amazing life, and he tapped into something that I tapped on very early on when I was helping people, when I was giving away a lot of information. I would work with people coming out of the military. I worked with an Army recruiter I just talked to last week, who's now like almost making over $200,000 a year. In 10 years working with me, I got him out of the Army and into a pretty great life. You know what I mean? And to me, that's so much more valuable than a lot of the work that I do. You know, I
It's the
think
outcome.
ultimately, yeah, I think ultimately, if I had had access to resources, so in Talent Grind, we're going to give you the Substack community, and if you want to support us and allow us to make our technology faster, you can do a paid plan there. And if you don't want to, you don't need to. You can get the information for free. We're going to have the Team Source platform, which is a free platform that we give away for you to use the top of your funnel. It's very rudimentary right now, but it works very well. And I'll be doing some, training, putting some videos out about how that works as well. And then I've also, now that we're on our own server, I've been able to get some open source software, and I've got a Notion equivalent called AppFlowy. And so I'm creating basically an entire membership Notion site there where we'll put links to videos. We'll put all the templates that you need, intake templates, recruiter templates. Essentially, like if you all of a sudden got a contract and you jumped in and they said, well, we don't have any recruiting process. Can you help us? You can come to us, get everything that you need to look like a pro to them, and to really blow their socks off, and also give other people the opportunity to add their documents. Right? Let's keep iterating. I don't know everything, right? I want to see people like take my stuff and like, no, you should do it like this. I'm like, oh yeah, that's way better than what I had, right? And that
Totally.
way we can all become more efficient, right? And we can get to the point where we can take advantage of this new world we're talking about, this AI enabled world where there's 1,000 times the companies. All of a sudden, we can have 1,000 times the recruiters. We're actually delivering like really solid recruiting services affordably to this whole new economy that's going to get built. And yeah, you're not going to get $50,000 a hire like you did in the past, but you could get, like Alex had said previously, you could get a company that's paying you $10,000 a month that you work with for over 2 years.
I think that's exactly
MRR,
it. I think,
MRR is better.
yeah, it's just like thinking about the value that you can get in a different way. Like, do you want it one and done? Do you want it recurring? How do you think about like what you think the potential of a client can be? Like, recruiters are entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
Like good, the best recruiters are the best entrepreneurs. You're in this business, people business, it's a numbers business, and you're trying to grow your business.
yeah.
Like, I've never done that in recruiting, but like, I speak to enough of you to know that like,
But
with
it's
your
the right
heads.
numbers, Alex. It's the right numbers, right? So with everything that I've built, I guarantee for my clients, which we got a sourcing service, it's $2,000 a roll a month. 2,000, and we'll do the entire top of the funnel for you. And what we guarantee is that you'll get a minimum of 100 on target qualified candidates that will reach out as you or an alias you give us through our platform. And if you only get a 3 to 5% response rate, that's still a pipeline that you built. in 2 months,
Yeah.
in a month for $2,000, as opposed to paying 35 grand. And if you do all their outreach as your company executives, you're expanding their talent network, right? And so I just want to get, I think if we could get 1,000 recruiters recruiting like I recruit, and then using my platform to help recruit, like if we get 1,000, we can get 10,000. If we can get 10,000, we can get 100,000. If we get 100,000, bye Robert Half, bye Kelly, bye these big industry companies that have been around forever, that are now starting to do RPO, and they're paying recruiters 15 to 20 bucks an hour. And there's a whole slew of middlemen in the middle who are making an ungodly sum of money. And so, if you take a look at my LinkedIn network or profile, you'll see that my banner image says a revolution in recruiting. I put that up in 2019 when I started this business, because I came out of Bolt, and they were building this essentially all-in-one platform that did checkout, it did fraud, it did a few
Yeah.
other things. It was like an all-in-one Amazon type solution, because they saw an ecosystem of fractured tools, and everybody's building a feature and no one was building a platform. And I'm like, that same thing's happening in recruiting. The exact same thing is happening.
It's still there.
What?
Is Bolt still around?
They're still around. They've got like over 85 million people on their shopping network. So now they
Yeah.
just have to manage and grow that network and get it as big as they can. Right.
I
And they
remember they
offer
were
them
in a.
one-click checkout. So they're in with a couple of really, really big companies.
Yeah, I
Like
remember they were
people
in
like to
that
bag
war.
on him because of Ryan Breslow. He's young. I think he made some mistakes. If I was leaving Silicon Valley writing out like a god emperor after having raised $1 billion, I would not trash the two biggest entities in Silicon Valley on my way out the door. But
To
that
each
was
their
his
own.
decision. That's what
But
he do.
he was stressed. He also beat the other company Fast, if I remember correctly. That was also
Oh,
nipping in the heels. Remember
Don
that?
from Fast. We could have a whole show talking about
Yeah,
Don from Fast. I'll
I
even wear
forgot.
my Fast hoodie for that show.
I forgot it. I forgot that he even existed. That kind of disappeared from the ether
There's
very quickly, didn't
so
it?
Don from Fast is like the anti Michael Doran. He like started without a lot of knowledge. He was really good at sales. He got in front of the right people. He convinced them. He built a team. He got all this energy. He got all this excitement, but did not have what it takes to like outline a product vision and build like a non-toxic company and really be a good steward of the VC money and grow it in a
Yeah.
responsible manner. And they flashed out. And that type of stuff happens all the time. That's why I've been over preparing for so long before really launching Talent Grind and really introducing people to Team Source. I mean, first of all, my platform is just to the point where I'm not embarrassed by it.
Which is where you should be,
Like we've
like
just gotten
isn't that
to
what
the
they
point
say?
where it's like it works really well, and we've got one final thing that we need to fix about the onboarding flow, and we're working on that right now. And it should be done within the next week or two. And at that point, it'll be easy for people to get in, create a project, create a workflow, create a sequence, start sourcing people, get messages out. Right.
So you sound really positive now.
Oh, I
You
am,
know,
because I'm
but,
going to give my
but
entire
where we
lifetime of
started.
experience away to recruiting. I'm going to give them an awesome tool to use across their career. I'm going to give them a knowledge base that they can go and turn to. And then I'm going to give them a community to support them. And I'm going to try to help lift up recruiters. We're not, we're not this runt HR throw off that's never going to be as good at sales anymore. Like recruiting, every founder in Silicon Valley will tell you it's like the most important thing. If without recruiting, you don't have a company, right? But without sales, you don't have a company too. So my partner Tim wanted me to point out that we will always say that sales is more difficult than recruiting. And you don't get a chance to recruit if you don't have sales out there doing their job. So we are not an anti-sales community. We are just a pro-recruiting community.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
But like I think the reason I say that is because like the tone at the beginning of this episode of us chatting was, it seemed a bit like dark. It seemed a bit like kind of like
I
you're saying
came in a little
the
bit
state
dark
of the
because that's what I'm
union
seeing
is
out
not
there.
good. But
Yeah.
I listen to you here, and I'm like optimistic. Maybe I'm optimistic for you, but I am categorically optimistic for the industry, because I'm like, if anything that AI is proving is that like it's not going to take your job. It is going to
No.
make you better at your job if you're willing to use it.
It'll make
And
your
I
job more fun. AI is gonna get
yeah,
rid of all the nitty-gritty grunt work that we've had to do, right?
yes, and
For
that's
all
the
those
thing,
hours of sourcing you have to do, you get the privilege of having some really interesting conversations with some great people and learning things. Like, dude, I interviewed the original CTO of Ask Jeeves once, who told me his wild personal story that it's not my position to share here, but like the wildest freaking story I've ever heard, Silicon Valley type of story, right? I interviewed, or not interviewed, but I met and talked to, just as networking, KC from Roblox when he was still at Palantir, right? And he told me all about his time, building the internal recruiting tools at Facebook, and told me it's
yeah.
not about recruiting people out of jobs. It's about making it, half as stressful and 10 times more productive. And I think that's really the vision that I have for this community, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
brand new to recruiting, and you come in and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I just got this job and it's super high volume and I have to fill 15 seats every 2 weeks and I have no idea what to do. Can you help me? We're going to be there. There'll be somebody who's been in those shoes who can like say, okay, because like my wife works for Substack. I built her as a recruiter, right? We worked together for almost 2 years at Bolt together. We worked building our recruiting services business together. I had her managing like 3 different startups we were building recruiting departments for simultaneously. And I was able to build her up to the point where she got that job entirely on her own, right? And she's now
Yep.
managing the job entirely on her own, and she's doing a great job. And that's so much more rewarding, right? And I want to scale that,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to scale what I do. Emily can come to me with any recruiting situation, anything, and I can tell her what to do. And I want to now just scale that to the entire recruiting community at large.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're quite the I was gonna say a flag bearer. Do I call you would I call you a flag bearer? Like you're certainly on like the super innovative side of like recruiting and like I definitely think, building the systems, thinking about getting rid of just the grunt work within
Yeah.
the industry that you're in. It's like it's kind of, one of those ones definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and like anticipating different results or expecting different results. Like on a practical level, like I would be so bullish for this industry. Yeah, there's going to be people that kind of come in and come out of it. Like there's obviously I mean, it is traumatizing that so many people have been laid off over the last 18 months.
It's
But where we are
traumatizing.
in but where we are in that curve is that like there was also an extraordinary amount of people hired in 2021 and 2022 to like grow businesses. And it's just like on one of those weird, unfortunate ones that there's the economic sort of wind is now downwind against like recruiters, but like that's not going to be forever. Like companies are going to start growing again. And so when are they going to start
Right.
growing? And like there's so much money being poured into AI companies. Every day I open my phone, it's like this random company I never heard of has raised $80 million to grow. Like
I know.
that's recruiting right there. Like that money is to scale that business. Like, I'm very bullish, like
Oh
you'll
my.
just make you better. And it's like ultimately at the end of the day, like it's going to went through like people forget. Like I think this is the other thing I think, and I appreciate where we are on time. It's that like people forget what COVID was like. Like what that was not even 5 years ago for everybody listening, whether you're a kid or you're ancient. Like that was not even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And what that did to talent acquisition, what that did to how people even want to work, it changed literally everything.
Right.
Like it opened up so much more talent that you could hire some random in Missoula, Montana for a Bay Area company now. But it also made it like, impractical for so many different diktats within that company. Like we want only in person. That person doesn't want to be in person. The best person. So it's like even like little things like that just changed how we even think about like talent and how we think about hiring. Like you've been under an extraordinary sea change in a way that many other industries haven't. I could
Three
have been do couldn't
Since
even
I
do my
started
job.
my career, Alex, I'm putting in my article, I've lived through 3 recessions and 3 aftershocks. I have only had
One
13 years out
pandemic.
of 25. Only half, no, actually it's something like only 30% 37% of my time has been in relatively safe economic times, my career. And over 60% of it has been in a recession or an aftershock or some type of economic challenging event. It's been
Yeah, I
insane.
mean, yeah, like, and I mean, that's like and it goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the episode. Was like, you think it's like a bellwether for the economy. Like you
Yeah,
said, not even recruiting, but recruiting services are like a
right,
bellwether. And I think you're right. Like, as in, like, if people are not hiring, they're not going to invest in a hiring solution.
right.
If there's not people investing in hiring solutions, well, then presumably there's like a nationwide or a statewide recession that is happening. You know what I mean? In that
And
space, for
and
sure.
there's something else, and I want to be really, really clear here for recruiters of all experience out there. If you have the right processes in place and you follow them exactly every single time, over time, you can get to the point where you're working like 20 to 30% of the time and completely kicking ass. And I can teach you how to do that. That's why I left Dropbox. After 9 months, dude, I was working like 25% of the time. And I was crushing it. And I was so bored. Like I was making, a decent amount of money. And I left to go to a startup making nothing.
Yeah, tell me about
You know,
it. Yeah, it's
I want to give these processes away. I want to help people be better at their job. I want to give people a resource other than Facebook group. Oh, I don't know which technology should I get? Well, how about a whole database where we go through every single technology and review it and let you know if it was built by a recruiter or not. And we should
yeah,
encourage people to support products that are built by recruiters.
that I agree with. That I agree with. I think it's not like some. It's like, you know, actually what it's like. It's like the kids in the government, and the big thing is like, who are these kids? What is their background in this space? It's like, yeah, like if you have people who understand, come from the background
Yeah.
of your industry, can get in there, not only sell you on the best product, but make you feel confident that this is actually the right product for you. Like, not thinking of it as sales, thinking of it as consultation. You know, like
Yeah.
that's such a key thing I think about all the time when I talk to recruiters, because I know you guys don't have the purse.
Oh,
Like
we don't.
I get like I
Well,
get if I
that's why I didn't take investment. That's why I've suffered for the last 5 years to build my platform so I could give it away to people for free, man.
a thousand
Like, it's so
percent
important. If I think about if I had my platform when just I moved out to Silicon Valley, I would have all my outreach at Google and sourcing. I'd have all of it from Dropbox. I'd have all of it from all these different startups that I've supported. And now that we're in the age of AI, how valuable would that data be for me?
would actually be quite valuable.
Be quite valuable, right? But where is all that data now? It is like ignored and like long
lost
archived in some
lost
company
in
system of
systems.
record somewhere, never to be seen again.
Lost in systems.
Lost in
I mean,
systems.
lost in systems. But
Well,
yeah,
okay, we're
so
at 54 minutes, so I think I should probably end it here, and we'll make these maximum 55 minutes. Alex, scintillating conversation this week. Thank you as always for being a partner to me. It's great to hear from you.
you're an absolute gent. I love this. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
I love our takes.
yeah. And this week has been pretty much all spicy takes, but then I think some hope at the end. So thank you all again for joining us for Talent Drive Live. You can join us next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m.